At 5:58 a.m., my coffee was still too hot, and my only road was already gone, a steel gate, where open gravel used to be. Chain gleaming like a smirk, while Pamela Cross stood there with a clipboard and that smile that says, "I'm being reasonable while doing something insane." And when I told her that road was my lifeline into Maple Hollow Reserve, she said I should call the authorities, knowing her cousin Leon handled half the calls in Willow County. 2 months earlier, I was just Evan Brooks trying to keep pears alive, and bills paid a quiet 12 acres, tucked behind identical mailboxes and HOA rules that never applied to me because my access easement predated their subdivision. But the morning that gate showed up, I learned something I'd always suspected: paper is a weapon if the wrong person is holding the pen. Pamela had a petition with anonymous initials and a notice of violation already filled out. Unauthorized roadway utilization, $500. And she kept glancing at the corner of her yard, like a raccoon keeps checking the chicken coop, that little pollinator sanctuary with a fake rock. A brass bird and a new junction box beating with condensation, even though the sun wasn't warm yet. I should have called the sheriff right then. You know what I mean. But the next morning she beat me to the punch with a manila folder and church lady coffee at my porch table, laying out a 15-year-old mistake I'd tried to outrun. A bar fight in Austin, a court date I ran from a warrant that still blinked red in some basement computer. And she never raised her voice, just tapped a page with her nail and said, "Leon is very dedicated to public safety." Then floated her terms like a neighborly compromise. Join the HOA. I'd been exempt from pay, $18,000 in back fees for services I never used. Accept her authority in all neighborhood matters, and this messy paperwork could stay private. I watched mud drying on her shoes while she called her corner garden family heritage and said some plantings require special depth and protection. She said those words twice like she'd been practicing them, and I understood she wasn't blocking a road, she was running an operation. The slow crush started the way these things always do. A robocall tree that never reached a human. Told me to upload barn photos within 48 hours or face escalating fines. A red-stamped PDF warned of non-compliance. The neighborhood app posted a picture of my survey tripod and called it heavy machinery. Vendors stopped answering. 2 restaurant buyers sent the exact same sentence about community concerns and having to press pause. And through all of it, her smile held the nice kind of smile that cuts without leaving fingerprints. I tried patience, then documentation, then prayer. And when that didn't change a thing, I did the one thing that made sense to someone who used to build things under fire. If she controlled the surface, I'd take the one route she couldn't barricade. Dirt talks if you listen. I measured from the shed to the fence line. Chalked angles. Tested clay, figured 6 feet of cover timber. Shoring drainage, so a spring surge wouldn't drown me, and I dug at night with my buddies. Ty and Boone, headlamps down. Humor, dark as asphalt. "You own the surface," Ty said. "We'll borrow the negative space," and Boone checked moisture by feel like a sommelier. Checks legs on a glass of red, we'll do it clean, or we don't do it. Then the theater started a crew. In crisp uniforms showed at noon, talking about emergency gas leak detection. Everyone needs to evacuate. They flashed badges that looked like they came from a printer that cost more than my pickup. I asked for a work order number and a supervisor's cell, and they blinked like deer. When the corn runs out. Next day, a man with calipers announced he was EPA and discovered concerning levels of something sounding official. I called the real number, and they had no record, and on the app, it turned into Aggressive homeowner refuses safety inspection, yeah. That happened. At dusk, Rhonda Hale from Pamela's board caught me by the mailboxes. Apology written all over her face, and whispered that Pamela kept talking about an insurance policy buried, where only she knows something that would protect her forever if anyone gets too nosy. And she repeated Pamela's own words back to me. Proper preservation levels. Like depth was a religion. At 25 feet, Ty's shovel hit hollow metal, right where that brass bird stared at my side. And for a second, I thought we'd found what she was guarding. But when we popped the lid, my life slid out in papers that didn't belong to me. A frame job dossier, so polished, it made me doubt my own memory transfers. With my name, skimming of Veterans Fund photos, staged to look candid. Stalking complaints, restraining orders. A tidy threat. Profile stamped with acronyms that sound expensive, and my friends stepped back like they touched a live wire. Boone packed up fast and said his wife would leave if this touched their house. Ty didn't say a word, and I'll be real with you. I stood alone in my kitchen, later staring at those pages, and for a minute, I wondered if trauma had carved out rooms in my head I didn't know about. But then the rational part of me showed up and started reading the dirt again. Fresh tool marks on the hinges. Soft soil, over compact, over soft, like someone baked a layered cake. Clay staining that hadn't had time to age. And the doubt dropped away. Planted evidence is loud. The truth sits quiet underneath it. I kept digging by myself because embarrassment is quieter. Underground, neighbors put up. Protect our kids signs like dandelions after rain. A flyer with a fake registry number floated around my liability insurance, suspended with 4 clicks. The state got a complaint I was running an unlicensed excavation business. Sheriff Leon did a wellness check and paced near the shed while I counted heartbeats in the tunnel. And I realized this wasn't about right or wrong anymore. It was about who could hold their breath longer. At 35 feet, my spade hit something that didn't ring so much as thud, heavier steel corrosion resistant. By the feel, the kind of box meant to last. And I rigged a crank line with hands so raw, I didn't feel the blood, until I saw it on the rope. And I'd love to tell you, I made a careful plan. But I hauled that box into the cul-de-sac at dawn because I wanted oxygen and witnesses' phones and faces, the kind of light gossip can't survive in. Folks showed with coffee cups and curiosity. Pamela arrived in a sweatshirt for once, and panic painted across her. That box is not yours. Put it back right now. Not please. Not we can talk, and I said loud enough for cameras that it came out of my dirt, my deed, my taxes, and if there's a mistake, we'd fix it together. Then I set to work on the locks, while Leon rolled up and stood with his hands on his hips, like a dad at Little League, pretending he doesn't want to take over the game. When the latch gave, it sounded like a rib cracking. And what spilled out wasn't gardening or family heritage. It was rot with a filing system. HOA bank statements showing more than 70 grand skimmed over 4 years, through consulting fees to shell vendors, a blackmail archive on 12 neighbors, photos, texts, leverage notes. In Pamela's careful hand, like vote, my slate, kill audit petition. Keep quiet. And then the tie-in that made Leon's face look like a man hearing his own house settle at 3 a.m. Monthly checks labeled community consultation lined up, date for date with complaints against Pamela that vanished from the county portal, his name on memo lines like it wandered there by mistake. Pamela lunged, and 2 neighbors who hadn't looked me in the eye in a month grabbed her wrists. Stop looking. "This is private." And I said, "You told me to call the authorities. Looks like they're already here." Another binder held a flowchart titled Target Neutralization Steps, so tidy they made my skin crawl. Anonymous posts, fake inspectors, vendor scare calls, robocall. Trees, a frame kit with doctored timestamps, a phone script for a crying woman. Contingency notes in pink ink for false emergency calls or collapse. Risk condemnations, or how to stage a planted box. If the target digs, and one tab literally read tunnel, like she thought the universe would obey a divider label if she typed it neat enough. I wish I could tell you. Vindication felt like a sunrise, but it felt like emptiness with a pulse. And when the crowd went quiet, Pamela stopped screaming and delivered a line that landed like a bruise. "You have no idea what you've just unleashed, slow and certain, and for the first time since the gate, I believed she might be right." Leon didn't cuff her. Immediately. He stared at a deposit slip with his name on it, and then the fuse in his mind finally reached the powder. "He got at the cuffs," said Pamela, turn around. She asked for the supervisor. And he said, "I am the supervisor on duty." She asked for the supervisor's supervisor. He said her name again, like it weighed something. The cuffs clicked, and a mother down the block started crying from relief, not fear, and that sound told me the show was over, even if the work wasn't. We cut it there. No parade, no victory lap. Just binders moving through offices that used to ignore me. Neighbors asking if I felt safe now, and me telling them, safety is a habit. Not a siren. Then 1 week later, a brown envelope with no return address showed up with a single photo inside. Not my street, not Pamela. Same kind of binder on a different kitchen table, same columns, new handwriting, and on the back someone had written, "You pulled one thread." So if you're asking, did I go too far? Carrying that box into the cul-de-sac and cracking it open in front of everyone? Maybe I did, or maybe it was the only play left when the system was rigged, and polite got me nowhere. You tell me, you know what I mean? Drop your take in the comments. Was I wrong to dig and go public? Or is daylight the only justice some people understand? And if your town has a Pamela, or your road disappeared behind a smile that felt like a trap, tell me what happened and where you're watching from, because maybe the rest of us can help you find the shovel.